We welcome you into this Week 7 edition of the show from the Shoe. I'm your host, Dan Herbener. Sitting on my right is my co-host, Colin Hassel. The Ohio State Buckeyes came away with a 49-28 victory over the Maryland Terrapins over the weekend, and now they're bowl eligible.
Yes, they are, and that's not the first thing that came to my mind when I thought about this win.
But you know what? The best part of being 6-0 is you get a chance to be 7-0, and that's all we can take away from it.
That's such a positive take. You sound like a football coach.
It absolutely is.
Game by game.
I am. I really am. Anyways, looking at the game from a more analytical side of things, I guess that's the word for it.
Sure.
I want to start with the quarterbacks. JT Barrett, the guy that we thought would start 2 times, and we're wrong 2 times. He's now the red zone quarterback, so to speak, or at least he was in the Maryland game. He runs for 3 touchdowns. Cardale Jones, 21-28 for 291, 2 scores. Plays a pretty good game, but like I said, once they got inside the 20, they took Cardale Jones out for JT Barrett.
Yeah, when I was watching this game initially, I did not like what I was seeing the entire time, the entire first half, and it was a closer game than I thought. It was 21-14 at the half. But when I went back and watched it, I really liked both quarterbacks and how they played. I thought Cardale improved dramatically on his previous performances. There were a couple times where he would just dump it off immediately, and in previous games I feel like he would have done those plays where he'd start running around, to start pointing at people to move, and in this game he seemed a lot more decisive. And then, like you said, JT Barrett came in on the red zone and he only threw 2 passes, but he also handed the ball off to Zeke, had 12 rushes for 62 yards and scored 3 times. I mean, I really liked what I saw all around from the quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's more of a product of their figuring things out or they just played a really bad team, and I guess we'll find out this week. But I do like the idea of playing JT Barrett in the red zone because once you get closer to the end zone, Cardale Jones, big arm, that skill, the field is condensed and that skill is less valuable when you're inside the red zone. Plus, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and last week we talked about the third down turnovers, red zone penalties they were destroying the Buckeyes, and in that red zone, the Buckeyes, they were proactive finally, and they did it in the most unique way possible, and they put a new quarterback in the red zone. That's not something you see most teams do.
No, it's not, and they did it really successfully by just running the ball down people's throats, and having 2 different running threats in JT Barrett and Ezekiel Elliott down by the goal line is very important, and something that they did a year ago that I thought was just so successful, and it's something that I've told you multiple times. They'll go empty down by the goal line, maybe 2 yards and in, and then they'll motion Nick Van Nett or whoever's in at tight end into the formation, and they'll just direct snap to JT Barrett and have him run straight up the middle. And I don't get how teams can't stop it. They see it all the time. Once they go empty and JT Barrett's a quarterback, he's going to run the football.
Well, it makes sense though, because there's so many weapons on the outside. It's not like you can bring someone in to come and load the box against JT Barrett, or else he'll just throw it outside. He'll audible. He's a smart quarterback.
And another play they like to run when they get into the red zone, they'll put 2 tight ends on the same side as Ezekiel Elliott. They'll direct snap to Barrett, and he'll run a quarterback sweep on the outside. And I tell you, if you don't know about Ezekiel Elliott being a good blocker, which I harp on all the time, watch him during those plays. He is just an amazing lead blocker, and he maybe didn't have his best game running the football, but he's a total package. He had a huge impact in blocking.
And I thought he did have a very good game running the football, but someone who didn't have a good game running the football, and I can't stand it, I thought we were done with him. Cardale Jones, the design runs, the zone reads, he had about 4 of them. In every single one, when he keeps the ball, it goes for approximately 1 yard. They have to stop doing it with him just completely, because he's best on the move when he's scrambling and getting out of the pocket. There's only one they ran, I think it was 4 times where he had a design run, and 1 went for more than 1 yard.
And when they run read options, just so everybody knows, it's not on Cardale that those plays aren't gaining yards, because it's a read play. He's reading the end furthest down on the line of scrimmage, and if that guy bites towards the run fake, he is taught to pull it. That's his job. So if that guy dives down and he doesn't pull it, they're going to lose yards either way.
So it's a play call.
It's a play call. It's not him. But other than that, I think he played a very nice game. Moving on to some other things, Braxton Miller finally getting involved in this offense after kind of taking a hiatus, if you will, from any sort of playmaking ability. Catches a touchdown. 5 receptions, made some plays in the open field. I think he was a big part of this victory.
Yeah, he was. He's very important. I never lost faith in him. He's a super athlete, and there's no reason why they can't get him the ball this many times every game. And I thought that this game was the first game where I felt like the evolution of the offense, it's finally working. They found something after the 6th game that might be something that they want to go with, and that's Michael Thomas, Braxton Miller, Jalen Marshall, and Ezekiel Elliott. Those are the 4 guys who are going to make plays. And Dontre Wilson, Curtis Samuel, and Nick Van Ness, they'll get their touches. But those 4 guys are going to be the guys that, if Ohio State wants to go far and they want to repeat, those are the 4 who are going to get the touches.
They're your game breakers, and they're guys who got the ball in space and had the chance to make plays. That was the biggest part of this offense that needed to be corrected, was just get the ball in your playmaker's hands. Stop having your quarterback hold the ball and try and hit a big play every single time. You don't need
it's
that.
Still not totally corrected, but it's gotten better. And like I said at the top, it's a lot of that is Cardale Jones. Just instead of holding that ball, he's going to dump it off quicker. And one thing that I made a note of, if Ohio State doesn't run more wide receiver screens, I'm just not gonna. I will not understand it, because as long as you don't throw it out there and the wide receiver just completely misses his block, every single player that Ohio State puts at wide receiver has the ability to just be a game breaker when he gets the ball. And the screen, it's basically a one-on-one on the outside, and every time the Buckeyes did it, be it, I don't know, Jalen, Braxton,
any of
them, they would get 10, 15 yards.
And that was the offense just looked better as a whole. And I don't know, like I said, if that's a product of who they were playing or they're just figuring things out. I think it's both. But Ohio State, 5 of 11 on third down.
I thought they would.
They did. They definitely did.
They weren't terrible.
We harped on last week, though, the third down conversion rate, the penalties, the red zone, and the turnovers. They did way better in all of those areas, and that was a big part of why they won this football game.
Yeah, because this is an issue that not only they've dealt with last week, but it's been plaguing them all season. And they went 5 for 11 on third down, which isn't, it's not tremendous, but it's good enough. And last game they went 2 for 14. That's terrible, and it's gonna cost you games. You go 5 for 11, you're in the game. And they held Maryland to 5 for 14, which, if I'm Ohio State, I would have preferred to hold them to less, especially since there were a couple of them that, if Ohio State had stopped them, then Maryland wouldn't have scored.
Right, and just transitioning from the offense to the defense, I think a lot of people expected it to just be the defense would play well enough for this team to win because they had so many playmakers on offense. I think this week they did that. They played well enough, but the fly in the ointment was the fact that they gave up a lot of runs to Perry Hills, and it extended drives. It changed momentum in the game, and that's something that needs to be fixed because it's a lingering problem, and you're going to face running quarterbacks down the road, and it's something that you can't just have that happen if you play a running quarterback. That needs to be something that you game plan for if you don't play it well in the first place.
Yeah, and Ohio State really hasn't faced just a total downfield threat at quarterback. Christian Hackenberg, there's issues with him, but he's going to be the best quarterback that they've faced thus far, even if the offensive line is not good. And even still, I think that the defensive backfield on just straight dropbacks and the defensive line pressures so well in the defensive backfield, despite Von Bell giving up the one first touchdown in the first quarter to put the Buckeyes behind 7-0. I really like what they're doing back there. The issue, like you said, is stopping the run and stopping the quarterback run in particular.
Stopping quarterback runs.
Yes. Stopping the run, though, is an issue as well. 17 rushes for 83 yards by the rest of the team other than Perry Hills. This is another time where a team against the Buckeyes have been able to run the ball successfully against them without a running quarterback.
You're right, and I think it's something that will get righted. There's no reason why this team shouldn't be able to stop the run. They have one of the better front sevens in all of the country. And like I said, the defense played well enough to win. So anyways, taking a step back, just real quick, looking at things from a holistic perspective, 6 games in, we're halfway through the season. The team hasn't played up to where we thought they would. Do you feel like your expectations have to be changed at all on this group, or do you feel like they'll get there?
Do they have to be changed at all coming into the year? Absolutely, because this is the first time that the AP poll has ever voted a team unanimously number one, and I was 100% in agreement behind that. I thought
there's no reason why they shouldn't have been.
Yes, that Cardale and JT were both battling for the quarterback, and we thought that those two each might have been one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Zeke would be a Heisman possibility. Bosa, possible number one pick. Great offensive line, great talented deep defense. And a lot of those things I still think are true, but as a whole, as a holistic team, they haven't come together as quickly as I would have hoped, which means I do think you have to recalibrate expectations, and they're not the clear number one that they were at the beginning of the year. I still think they're probably, I still would have them number one, but they're definitely not the clear number one.
No, I agree with you that coming into the season, the expectations were definitely off the charts, but like you said, people really underrated how hard it was to figure out the quarterback system. I think people just expected both of those guys to be able to plug and play in a scheme, but what they didn't see was that they're two different quarterbacks with really different skill sets. Ezekiel Elliott is still a Heisman contender. Joey Bosa could still be the number one pick. The offensive line is figuring it out. I think that was the most concerning part for me, was that the offensive line didn't play well because they had all played together before. And they didn't gel right away, but I think they're getting there. And you're 6 games into a season. If it takes you 8 games to figure it out and you still win, which is a very distinct possibility with Ohio State's schedule, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Ohio State is so incredibly lucky with the schedule.
If they played a harder schedule, they would have lost.
I totally believe that. With Virginia Tech being at Virginia Tech, that was a difficult game, but it's not Michigan State or Michigan, which are the last 2 games of the season. And up until those 2 games, it's going to be difficult for them to lose unless they just totally blow it, like they had a couple times against Northern Illinois. They only beat Northern Illinois 20-13. We're going to look back at that and wonder how that was even possible.
But like we saw in the first year of the playoff, all you have to do is click at the right time. Ohio State did it a year ago. Hopefully Urban Meyer can get them to do it this year.
It seems like they're working their way there. It's every week we've seen them improve in some facet of the game.
I still do believe that they will get there, and we'll get a better idea of it this week. Now welcome in Bob Flounders. He writes for PennLive.com, a beat writer for the Penn State football team. Bob, thank you very much for joining us.
It is a pleasure, gentlemen, to be joining you, and I'm happy to talk all things. James Franklin, Penn State, Saquon Barkley, Joey Julius, Carl Nassib, Anthony Zettel, and Austin Johnson. But that's it. I won't talk about anything else.
Not even Keegan-Michael Key. You will not talk about him.
I will talk about him because that was, I thought, pretty funny last week. That's a good looking out. I can talk about him as well.
I did enjoy that impression. I thought his mannerisms were straight on. But moving over to the more football side, Penn State comes into this game with a record of 5-1, and they're a team that lost in week 1, and since then have kind of been under the radar, but they've won 5 in a row now, and they're coming into an Ohio State game where they have to feel a little bit confident. After a year ago, they kept it very close. What's the mood around campus right now, knowing that Penn State is kind of feeling it right now?
I would say let's go with guarded optimism. I say that because, with all due respect to the 5 teams they beat, by the way, Penn State has yet to leave the state of Pennsylvania this year. They've played in Pennsylvania, either at Beaver Stadium or in Philly. They really haven't beaten a team of note, and I know that Indiana gave Ohio State some problems a couple weeks back, but that wasn't really the same, I think, circumstance that Penn State had. They didn't have Sudfeld at all. Xander Diamond left the game, early in the third quarter. And it just didn't really feel, and I really feel like, Indiana really put a lot into that Ohio State game. I think I would say guarded optimism only because they really haven't gone up against a team that I think that, was considered a real test and beat them. Army had this team in trouble late in the game a couple of weeks ago. So they haven't really seen anyone nearly as good as this Ohio State team that I think is going to be pretty pumped to be playing in prime time, at home. So I'll be real anxious to see how they match up athletically with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, that'll be really important for them. And like Dan said, there were a lot of expectations coming into the year for Penn State, and then it sort of just went down right in the tube, right when they lost to Temple 27-10, and the expectations seemed to shift giantly. And like Dan, I hadn't really heard there have not been a lot of people on the Penn State bandwagon since. What are the expectations for Penn State to finish this year? Are Penn State people, do they believe that Penn State is the team right below Ohio State, Michigan State, and possibly Michigan now? Do they believe that they're just right on the precipice?
I think that having seen Penn State play under James Franklin last year in the Big Ten, and then seeing them play, they caught even the Rutgers game that they won 28-3 this year. They caught Rutgers in a great spot. There was a lot. The team was distracted. Rutgers was distracted. The news with the coach being suspended had just come out. They didn't have Leonte Carew, the big play wideout. And it was a primetime game. And Penn State played well, but that wasn't the same Rutgers team I think that you saw play Michigan State. I would say this about the Penn State fan base: I think they're realistic in what they can expect from Penn State the rest of this year. I think if you look at the remainder of the schedule, you can kind of break it down into winnable games and games that are going to be I think fortunate to have a shot in. Now, obviously, the Ohio State game is one. I think you can throw in Michigan State, Michigan now, and even Northwestern on the road. I think it's going to be very tough for Penn State to win that game. That's 4 games that you could really make a pretty good argument that they're going to lose those games. They also have a home game against Illinois and also a neutral site date with Maryland that's kind of reeling right now. So I think if you're a Penn State fan, you're looking at it this way. I think there's 2 more games they'd be disappointed if they didn't win. And if they could steal one of the games against Michigan, Northwestern, Ohio State, and who am I leaving out? Michigan State, Northwestern, and Ohio State. If they could steal a win there and get to, would that be 8 wins? I think Penn State fans could probably live with that. They're not going to beat Ohio State, I don't think. I don't see how that's going to happen. But I think Penn State fans want to see if they can win a game in November that they're not expected to win.
And a lot of the expectations coming into this season were based around their quarterback, Christian Hackenberg, who is looking like things kind of are falling off the map right now. Is that more so just he had a lot of success with Bill O'Brien as his coach his freshman year, and then James Franklin came in and things kind of fell apart, but they had some struggles on the offensive line. Is it part of it schematic, or is it more so that they just don't have the pieces offensively?
Well, I mean, I talked to some people that know football a lot better than I do, and it's pretty unanimous. Obviously, the offensive line is just not that good, especially the left tackle spot. Paris Palmer is a JUCO that's been playing there. I believe he's going to have all kinds of trouble with Mr. Bosa on Saturday. That's obviously a key matchup, but also more to your point about scheme. I don't know that this Penn State offense is set up to really enhance what Hackenberg does best. This is an offense that they don't really do a lot with their tight ends. They don't have a receiver that's really as good as Allen Robinson was, when he was at Penn State. Even when Penn State lost to Ohio State 63-14 a couple of years ago when Hackenberg was a freshman. If you look at that game, Robinson made some incredible plays in that game, or else they might have gotten shut out. He's a legit NFL wideout. The Penn State wideouts they have now have some talent, but they're not there yet. I think that Christian Hackenberg's best football days are ahead of him, and I believe they are not going to be at Penn State. I think he'll be much more successful at the professional level than he will in this offense. I just don't think it's an offense that's really geared toward what he does best, and that's throwing the ball down the field if you can protect him.
Yeah, and in the backfield with Hackenberg is you talked about at the beginning, Saquon Barkley. He didn't play last week, so one, will he be healthy enough to play this week? And two, he's averaged 8.9 yards a carry, which is pretty ridiculous for a true freshman. Did anyone expect this from him, and what is his running style that makes him so good?
Yeah, I hope you guys get a chance to see him. I don't know that you will. He's been out since the San Diego State game a couple of weeks ago. he got rolled up on after a play on near the Penn State sideline, and he's got an injury. It's to his right ankle foot area. Penn State's always being vague about injuries. He's going to be limited in practice this week. I do think it's not a serious injury, and there's a chance he could play, but I think that Penn State's made the decision that if he's not close to 90-95%, I think they're prepared to get him healthy. I think there's a chance you'll see him. I'm not positive, but I will tell you this: even though Penn State has not played, terrific defenses, they didn't use Saquon against Temple, and I thought that that was obviously a play. He's a true freshman. They weren't ready to use him. He is a gifted athlete. When you watch him on tape, he's 5'11", about 220. And the reason he is so good is he's tough to stop. After initial contact, he gets a lot of yards after contact. And I know that's something that Ezekiel Elliott is really good at. Obviously, with Ohio State, he did it against much better defenses last year, and he continues to do it. Saquon Barkley is a guy that he's a 4'4" guy that's got size, but he can also make you miss or run over you, and that's just they haven't really had a back like him. I've been covering the team since 2002. I've heard a bunch of different comparisons. The guy that he reminds me of most is Larry Johnson, but that's just the one I've seen.
It's a heck of a comparison.
Matt Millen played at Penn State. He compares him to Kurt Warner, who might be the greatest player, the greatest runner ever at Penn State.
Just before we wrap things up, flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, this has been the best part of Penn State. And a year ago, an offense that was rolling came into Happy Valley and got shut down by Penn State's brilliant defense. Once again, they're rushing the passer extremely well, and they're playing great in both phases. Is this a defense that feels like it is going to be able to stop Ohio State, an Ohio State team that had some struggles early on, but maybe pick things up a little bit? Do they feel confident that they can shut down this Ohio State attack?
Boy, I hope they're realistic. I don't know that if Ohio State comes to play and protects the football, that you can stop this offense. You're right. That was a surprise last year. As good as they played, to hold them under 300 yards and really limit all those playmakers, take away the big play. I think the long gain for Ohio State last year was 21 yards. It was surprising. They tackled very well last year. Penn State did. They got monster games from Mike Hall, who's no longer there. Naeem Wortman had a good game. And Marcus Allen, the safety, made his first start, played very well in that game. Tackling has been an issue in the secondary for Penn State this year. If they don't tackle well on Saturday night, I think Ohio State's going to score a lot of points on them. That's going to be a key to the game, is yards after initial contact. Can Penn State limit the Ohio State players? They have so many of them. I just don't know if they can do it this year.
And normally we like to end the show with a prediction. Listen, my dad is from Harrisburg. He's a Penn State fan. He's being realistic about this game. He does not think that they will win. But what do you think the score will be in this football game, and who's the winner?
Yeah, I think that what I've seen of Ohio State the last couple of weeks is when they have struggled on defense, it's been because of a running quarterback who's made plays out of the pocket. And Hackenberg really isn't that guy. I mean, they don't really have a running threat at quarterback. So I think Ohio State's going to play press man on the outside, and I don't know that Saquon Barkley's going to play. I think Ohio State's going to win the game 34-13 was my pick. I think Penn State can hang around a little bit, but eventually on the road, some of their issues are going to surface. They're not going to be able to protect Hackenberg, and they're just not going to be able to match Ohio State score for score. I think they're going to pull away and win late. I got a 34-13 Buckeyes.
All right. Well, that's Bob Flounders from PennLive.com. You can go to their website and see some of his great work that he does on Penn State football there. Bob, we'll see you on Saturday. Best of luck to Penn State, and best of luck to you in the future.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Good luck.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Again, that was Bob Flounders from PennLive.com. He picked Penn State to get beaten by Ohio State 34-13. I seem to be thinking along similar lines, but I'll let you go first.
I'm along similar lines too, and it's weird because we've been so wrong on every single prediction that we've given this entire year. It's been really embarrassing. pretty much everyone else who we've had as a guest has also been very wrong this year. We've been wrong about quarterbacks.
Coaches.
Coach. We had a discussion about Randy Edsel last week, and then he got fired immediately after the game. I think I'm right along the lines with him, though. I'm feeling confident about Ohio State. I really liked what I saw out of them this week, surprisingly enough, even though at the time I was not really liking what I was seeing. I think Ohio State wins. I'm really right along with them, 35-24.
All right, that's kind of a close game. I think they come out with their hair on fire, looking to prove something. If you can't get up for a Saturday night game in Columbus where you're wearing black jerseys for the first time, then you can't get up for anything. And I think...
Do you think they would get up if they were not wearing black jerseys?
Yeah, I think they still would, but that just adds to it. But I think Ohio State wins 38-7. Maybe Penn State hangs around for a little bit, but Ohio State gets a 38-7. Yeah, you heard me, right? Did I stutter?
You did not stutter.
38-7, Ohio State wins this football game. But that will do it for Colin and I for this week from the show from the Shoe. For Colin Hossel, I'm Dan Herbner. We'll see you Saturday night.
Peace.